I am doing the clinic with my dad. My name is Paige Bjerkaas, and I'm the 2018 World Champion. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
My name's Doug, and I'm the father of the 2018. However, I want to warn everybody, she gets everything from her mama.
But he is also a very skilled disc golfer, and I learned a lot from him, and a lot of the tips he taught me as a kid has definitely helped me as I've made my way up in the career. But we'll start with putting. So I guess since we don't really have a basket, I'll try to emulate. But so one thing I want to talk about with putting is everybody has a putting style, right? Paige Pierce's putting style is different than Ricky's, who's different than Paul Macbeth, who's different than Sarah Hokum, right? There's different types of putting, but they all are still successful with it. So it's important that you kind of figure out what your style is, what you like, and develop a routine. Routines are very, very important. You know, when you form a routine and you really get yourself in a good mental state, you know, whether you're putting at your local tag match or you're putting at a big tournament, you know, if you have that routine, it helps you with your consistency. But anyway, so the point of that is that, you know, we all putt differently, and there are a couple things that we all do the same, which I'll talk about, but the main thing about putting is mental, right? And we all know that. The game of disc golf and golf in general is mental, like be strong mentally, be confident. And so I guess we'll kind of talk about some tips that I can give you to kind of boost your confidence that have at least helped me. And then we can kind of talk about like the mechanics of it. But in terms of the mental game, one thing that has helped me a lot, and you guys might laugh maybe, but that is saying out loud, I got this, right? Or, you know, you're going to execute the shot. And sometimes under pressure situations or pressure putts, I literally say it out loud and my card mates can hear me, right? And you know, saying it out loud and saying it enough really does help that confidence on the inside, at least for me. So believing in yourself is the number one thing. Say it to yourself, think it inside your head, and it goes a long way. Another thing to help build your confidence is practice, right? And I don't necessarily mean go spend 30 minutes to an hour in your backyard. Like, we're realistic. We know that not everybody has time for that. But that means bringing an extra putter on the course. Let's say you're going to go play around with your buddies. Anytime I play a practice round, I bring at least 2 extra putters, and I throw 2 to 4 putts on every basket. So you don't necessarily have to set time aside to do that practice putting. Just do it when you're playing with your buddies. That definitely goes a long way. If you keep getting that stroke and you keep doing it over and over again, your body will be able to execute it under that pressure, no matter what the nerves are. If you have that routine, if you have that practice that you've been putting in on the course, and you say to yourself, you know, I got this putt, I promise your putting game will increase drastically. I know it helped me a lot. So those are a couple mental tips, just trying to stay positive. Another thing that would be pretty good is playing putting games with your friends, right? You can drain all these putts during your casual rounds, but once it comes to tournament time, there is that pressure. And sometimes it's kind of hard to practice that pressure. So I recommend, you know, when you're playing that round with your friends, put some money on the round, put some money on a putting game, anything like that to, you know, emulate the feeling of pressure, and that definitely goes a long way.
It doesn't necessarily have to be money either. It can be, you know, if I'm putting with my wife, whoever makes the most doesn't do dishes that night or something.
Right.
So that makes sense. But I'll reiterate, I for years played in Masters tournaments with a buddy of mine from Denver, and we just made it a habit before our tee times or before the round, we would find a basket and we'd play cat. We called it cat, which is basically horse, but just with 3 letters. You place a word that's too long. Number one, my buddy had trouble with anything more than 3-letter words. But also, it makes it quick, but you're competing for something. You're trying to win, and there's something behind it. And if you have something behind what you're doing, it really does make a difference. I believe in that 100%.
Absolutely. And you know, the top players have the strongest mental game, right? So it's just something you can work on. I also recommend reading any books, any mental game books, and that really has helped me a lot too. So kind of the mechanics behind it. One thing, or a couple things that all players do, right? Number one is follow through, right? And that's true on anything, an upshot, a drive, or putting. But for me, the point of following through is to get that emphasis and get that extra pop. There's been so many times where my putt hits the cage, right? How many times have we doinked putts and they hit the cage? It's one of my pet peeves. I hate missing short, but that's because I didn't follow through. And as I'm a push putter, I don't know how many of y'all are push putters or spin putters, but for me as a push putter, what my follow through looks like is coming up, right? Sarah Hokum is also a push putter. Her follow through is up. And so I'm making sure to exaggerate that every time. I mean, Paul Macbeth, when he makes his putt, his arm is extended even after he lets go of the disc. So that follow through, number one, it helps you get that little extra pop on your putter, but it also helps to see what your mistake is, right? So let's say I follow through and I miss right. If I'm following through, I can see my hand is to the right side of the basket. So next time that I step up to a putt on the following hole, last time I was like, man, I missed right. Let's make sure to emphasize that follow through on the center of the pole. So it's a good way to, like, I guess, keep track of, you know, what your mistakes are and how you can adjust properly. Another thing that has helped me a lot is using my legs. So, you know, when you're close to the basket, you usually use most arm, right? Tap-ins, we're just throwing it in. But as we get further back, you know, we start to crouch down more. And for me, whenever I got to about 30 feet, I kept hitting cage. I, like, couldn't get the distance, and I'm like, what's happening? I found out that, you know, you're putting, when you putt, you use a lot more legs than you think. And so as I got further from the basket, at least for my putt, you know, there's two types of way to kind of get momentum on your putt, and that's either from down to up or back to forth. It all depends on your style. But for me, because I kind of go down to up, I started putting more weight on my back leg and using it to push forward, right? So that I get that extra power. Instead of trying to throw it harder with my arm, which kind of made me miss right or miss left or not really feel as accurate, I wanted to keep my stroke feeling the same, but use the legs to get that extra pop. And if you look at all the top players, you can notice that, like, the further out they get, the lower they go. Ricky's putt goes, like, way down here when he's got those, like, 60 footers. So although, like, we all do putt different, those are a couple things that we all do that are in common and that really lead to successful putting, in my opinion. Got anything else to add?
One little tip that this revolutionized my putting game, and it was the most simple suggestion, is that if you're ever putting uphill, I can't tell you how many times I would putt uphill to an elevated basket and I'd be short. And someone told me years ago, I used to tell the kids this all the time, when you have an uphill putt, right before you putt, lift your chin up just a little bit. It is amazing what that will do. When you have an elevated basket, just lift your chin up, and for some reason, I stopped missing low. I was making a whole lot more putts, and actually if I missed, I was hitting high. And as Paige mentioned, a putt that hits the cage never had a chance to go in.
Yeah.
A putt that hits high at least had a chance to go in. So just lifting your chin up just a little bit, it changes everything. Now, unfortunately, we can't try. Well, actually, if on hole 9 today you're down on the bottom of the hill, try that out and tell me how it works.
Yeah. Good tip. I remember that. But yeah, so those are kind of some tips that we have on putting specifically. Do you guys have any questions about putting? Like, it could be form. Yeah.
How about putting? You know, Kansas is notorious for the wind.
Yeah.
What do you suggest for the headwind, or you got one behind you?
Yeah. Okay, so she asked about putting in the wind, right? We live in Kansas. It's super windy here. One thing I've learned over the years is that you can learn from the wind, absolutely, but sometimes the wind is going to do its own thing, right? I've kind of figured out that about 75% of the time the wind will do what you predict, but the other 25%, sometimes you think you make the perfect correction and it still rises or it still drops. So when it comes to wind putting, I try to be a little bit more lenient with myself, you know, and really, man, that didn't do what I thought it was going to do. So that's just kind of a small thing to think about. But in general, tailwind putts will push your putter down. So whenever, because I'm a push putter, anytime I have a tailwind putt, I aim at the band because I know the wind is going to push it and drop it down. Headwinds will do the opposite. It'll, unless you have a nose down putt. It's like my putt sometimes gets nose down, and if that headwind gets over the top of it, it shoots it way down. So I really got to make sure that my release is flat whenever I putt into a headwind. But if you get it a little nose up, it's sailing. You really got to get that sweet spot in the middle, and to perfect that, I'd recommend putting. Like a couple days ago, it was really windy here, and I did headwind putts, and whew, it was frustrating. But you learn from it, you know, and trying to figure it out. For left to right winds, at least that I've learned, is it kind of, the way it affects my putt is similar to a tailwind. It likes to drop it down. So whenever I have a left to right putt, a left to right wind putt, I just aim a hair left of the pole, and I aim a little bit high, and it drops it down. And then when the wind is right to left, did I say that right? It's going to carry it a little more, especially if you have that like hyzer putt or a little bit of like the plate being exposed to the wind. It's going to get underneath it and kind of carry it in. And I recommend checking out YouTube. There's tons of clinics on putting in the wind and how to read the wind.
I know for wind putts, the one thing I do is I almost do a second check on I've got to release this disc flat. Because really the wind doesn't do too much to a disc if you release it perfectly flat. Like if I tell people it's like sliding a plate over a dining room table or something. If I can keep that disc perfectly flat, it's very likely the wind will not impact it as much, because really what the wind does is it impacts imperfections in your throw. So if my nose is a little bit up and there's a headwind, just like an airplane taking off, and I'm like, oh boy, I had the nose up. Or the one that gets me a lot is sometimes I'll think so much about it, in fact even on short putts with a brutal headwind, that there's oftentimes, it's like I'm throwing down at the bottom of the pole because I just had the nose down a little bit. So it's just taking that extra little second to just go throw it flat, Doug, throw it flat. You can do this, you've done it before, you know, and throw it as flat as I possibly can.
Yep. Any other questions on putting? Awesome.
I got one more tip on putting, and then you guys probably want to hear her more than I do, but when I first started playing disc golf, the first round I played, I remember making about a 50-foot shot, and I was stoked. First of all, I came from a ball golf background, and I thought this is going to be easy, and I proceeded to shoot 38 over par. So it was not easy, and I absolutely wanted to master it. But what that did is it made me think, boy, I can make these 50-footers all the time. And for a long time, my scores were elevated because I was too aggressive when I was putting. And a guy once told me, he said, you know, when I'm putting, if I'm actually in a putting position, I tell myself it's either going in or the next one's going in. And if you have that mentality, and if you are at a range where you know that the chance of you making that putt is slim to nil, don't put yourself in the position to where your next putt, you're also in that position where it's slim to nil to make it. So, and that kind of creates a whole different type of putting for me. I have a putt where if I'm in my range where I think I can make it, which for me is about 35 to 40 feet, that's about where I think I have a pretty good chance of making this. If I'm outside of that, my putt really shifts back and it becomes more of a slow hyzer putt that sometimes goes in, but if it doesn't go in, I'm not like worried about the next putt. So that's kind of a mental piece as well as a mechanics piece.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, since there's no more questions on putting, we'll get to upshots with putters. I don't know if everyone uses putters for upshots. There's obviously mid-ranges and stuff that are also used, but we'll just talk about using putters. I particularly like them. They're easier to throw than like a mid-range, and for me the release feels a lot better. But I just have a couple tips on helping you get close to the basket when you're that 150 to 200 feet away. I have fluffed many upshots that distance, right? Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. You want to putt it, you want to throw it, and it's kind of that in between. And so one thing that has helped me a ton, number one, is find a putter upshot disc that you like. For me, I really like the Dynamic Discs Judge. It's overstable, right? So I put it a little bit out to the right side of the basket and it always fades. But that's the kind of shot I like. If you guys like that dead center, you might want something straighter like a Deputy or a Warden, which we have here. Or if you like that Anheuser, just figure out the kind of shot you want for the upshot and find a disc that works well for it, like with it, and practice. You're good. So I mean, for me, for y'all, I recommend the Judge. It's an awesome upshot disc. But one thing that has helped me a lot is getting height underneath the putter, right? So sometimes, when at least when I fluff the upshot, I kind of throw it low and it hyzers out low and short, and then I have like a 25-footer. But I realize, like, if I just stand still and get some height underneath it, I really don't have to throw it that hard. Putters are deep, and the more air you get underneath them, the further they're going to glide. So I just stand still, and I make sure to just put it up a little high. And another thing that has helped me a lot is shortening the reach back, right? right? If I'm from me to the basket, I don't need to be reaching back all the way here, right? Because that's a lot of momentum being built, and I'm going to go sailing by the basket. So I recommend, you know, a lot of this will be practice, but figuring out like how far do I need to reach back for this shot? Am I going to be this far? Is this going to be enough? Do I need to get a little more? And just kind of testing and seeing what's going to work. And again, you don't need to do field work to do that. If you're playing around with your friends, bring a couple extra putters and throw multiple upshots and just kind of learn and see what's going to work best for you. Another really big tip I have is you want to land, you want to throw to the basket, not at the basket, right? So if I'm 150 feet away, I don't need to be trying to run it, right? Because chances are no one in your division is going to be making that shot. So instead of trying to sail at the basket, I try to get my upshot, my putter, to land at the pole, right? I don't want to go sailing by and having a 30-footer. My goal is to land at the ground right next to the basket, so I just have a tap in. And for me, that's figuring out where I want to aim. So I talked about that height. You know, if I want to get extra distance, I want to get a little bit more height. But I try to aim a little bit lower so that by the time it reaches the basket, it's to the ground already instead of sailing by it. And that's helped me a lot. It definitely helps you save a few strokes, and it's definitely helped me a lot. You got any tips?
Not on upshots. I don't like them.
No, but it's just like important to find a disc you like and figure out, you know, what do I need to do to get the disc to be landing at the basket. Again, you don't want to be throwing it in. I mean, it'd be cool if you threw it in, but, if your competition's right next to the basket, you don't want to sail by and end up three-putting and losing a stroke. So, and this is finding your comfort zone. And what I mean by that is, what distance around the basket are you comfortable putting? For some people, it's only like 10 feet. For some people, it's the circle, right? So, you want to find what distance you're going to feel comfortable putting. And when you step up to an upshot, and let's say you don't execute it perfect, right? You're not underneath the basket, but you're 20 feet away, and that's in your comfort zone. That really at least helps me mentally, because it's okay that I didn't execute the shot perfectly, but I still feel like I'm confident enough to make that putt. And this also lets you be a little bit more lenient with yourself. There's been times where I have this perfect line, like if I hit this shot just right, I'm going to be right next to the basket, and I end up yanking it a little bit left or right, but I'm still inside the circle, which is my comfort zone, and I'm like, okay, just because I messed that shot up doesn't mean I can't still make that putt. Just because it's not a tap in, it doesn't mean I'm not going to make it. And so that also helps with that confidence side. Just being lenient with yourself. Learn from your mistake. What did I do wrong in that situation? Did I pull it right? Did I pull it left? And then from there, instead of getting upset, like, dang it, I messed up. Number one, you learn from it. And number two, you're like, okay, I have a putt. I can still make it. It's not too late to save my par, get my birdie, whatever the situation is. So, any questions on upshots?
So what you're doing here, you're talking about going high to get more.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, so you're in a headwind. You're still keeping the nose down. That'll help. You know what I'm saying?
You mean for putting or like for throwing? From an
You're aiming higher up, right? You get a little more loft, so you get more glide on your putter.
With.
But you're in a headwind.
So.
Is that going to change, your decision on what you're going to throw?
Yeah. Honestly, if I'm throwing an upshot in a wind, I don't really have any nose down because it's a throw, and I'm, pretty good at keeping it flat. But with the headwind, I disc up to a more overstable disc, so that would be my Fusion Judge, which is the most overstable putter I have in my bag. And I'll still aim like a little high, not higher than usual, because I don't want that wind to get up underneath it and make it sail, but I'll try to throw it a little harder and a little straighter so that it cuts through the wind more. So like Dad said, if you have a disc flat, it's probably not going to affect it that much. And at least for me, it's easier to achieve that flatness when I'm throwing rather than putting for whatever reason. So I just try to aim a little bit right and a little bit lower, and I just trust that's gonna cut through. Any other questions? Awesome. Okay. So the last part of our segment will be using or throwing putters for distance or maybe off the tee. And I'd say that's one of my strengths. And so I love talking about it, and I definitely recommend it for anyone. There's a couple of reasons why you'd want that, right? Most of the time you think, oh, you're on the tee pad, why aren't you throwing a driver? The number one reason why I would use a putter instead of a driver, I guess, is if it's a wood shot, right? So let's say I have a tunnel shot. The benefit of throwing a putter is that it's such a slow speed, right? So let's say I throw my putter and I end up hitting a tree and shanking it. Because it's such a slow speed disc, it's probably not going to kick too far off the fairway. Right? If I threw a 13 speed driver and I hit a tree, it's sailing into the woods, and my upshot's going to be or even my pitch out's going to be way more difficult. So I like throwing slower speed discs in the woods like a putter so that I keep myself in the fairway. They're a lot easier to throw straight, and that kick is going to it not being too far off the fairway will help me save strokes. Another reason why I would throw a putter is maybe placement. There's a lot of courses out there where, it's really about placement. Where do I want my next shot to be? And a putter, at least for me, gets me there. I play my rounds before the tournament and I figure out, okay, where do I want to land on this hole? What do I want my next shot to look like? And putters are really nice for placement because they don't move much. Like Dad said, there's not a lot of movement on the ground, especially with a gummy putter like that. But even these, if my disc is coming in, even on a hyzer kind of fast, it will skip, but not nearly as much as like a driver. So it's really good for placement and kind of getting the disc to settle down. And so those are like two main reasons why I would throw a putter off the tee. But one thing that I think one of my strengths is that I throw putters kind of far. And the number one thing that has helped me so much with that, and I talked about it a little bit earlier, is getting that height underneath it, right? So if I throw my judge like I would a Ballista Pro and keep it low and flat, it's not going to go very far. And that's because, like I said, the putter is a deep disc. And so the more air you have underneath it, the more it'll want to carry. So like literally when I'm throwing a putter off the tee, I go from like low to high to make sure that it pushes, like the momentum pushes it forward as well as high. And the more air I have underneath it, the more carry and the more glide it'll get. And so another disc that I recommend for that, obviously, is the Judge. I love the Judge, but I would recommend these higher end plastic putters. The Fusion, the Lucid, with the other companies, I don't know, Champion, whatever, but they can handle a lot more power because they are more overstable. And I can really crank on a putter and it won't turn over. And another thing is when I am throwing high, I'm making sure I'm keeping it flat at the same time. I don't want to throw it nose up because we know what happens to a disc when it goes nose up. It dumps down and doesn't go very far. So when I'm trying to throw my shot, I'm keeping it from low to high, but keep making sure my wrist is still flat so that it cuts through the air and it carries, and I guess it doesn't like fade out. But I mean, throwing putters for upshots and drives has definitely helped me save a few strokes. Honestly, it won me worlds. I played pretty conservative and used my putters as much as possible so that my mistakes weren't very drastic, right? So those are just some of the tips I have for getting distance with putters. Do you have anything else?
I can remember playing with some guys in Denver that drove putters off the tee pad, and I thought they were crazy. I'm like, why would you throw a putter on a hole when you've got a mid-range or a fairway driver or a driver? Because it just seems like those are going to go so much further. And these guys could throw these putters dead straight. Mm-hmm. And to me, the coolest looking shot to see is a putter drive that just goes dead straight. And literally, most discs either finish to the left or finish to the right, where it literally just finishes forward. And I've just always thought they looked good and they were very effective. There's all kinds of times where you have straight shots, and the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And I think it revolutionized both my game. I know it's revolutionized my daughter's game. And I tell people this all the time. If you're going to get someone to start playing disc golf, give them a putter. Give them a putter. And as Paige mentioned, the Fusion or the Lucid, where it's not going to get chewed up when it hits trees and things like that. Learn how to throw the putter, and if you can learn how to drive a putter, the mid-ranges, the fairway drivers, the drivers, those are just going to come that much easier. Putters are awesome, and they make a huge difference.
Yeah, the finesse you learn with the putters definitely translates into the rest of your game. Absolutely. So yeah, we definitely recommend it for anybody.
Yep. Specifically, the Fusion Judge, which if you go buy one, has a signature of someone that I know right over here already on it. So Fusion Judge is absolutely my favorite disc in the bag.
Absolutely. And another thing that putters do, which I think is awesome, is they show you what your mistakes are, right? So let's say you crank on a high-speed driver and release it like this, it'll correct itself, right? And so you kind of learn the habits of, maybe not throwing it quite the way you should, but if you threw a putter like that, it's going to cut and roll. If you release it with too much hyzer, it's going to dump. These really show you what your mistakes are and things that you can work on, basically. So again, recommend, if you really want the rest of your game to be elevated and you want to get more distance and feel like your throw is more smooth, putters and mid-ranges I absolutely recommend. Learning to throw straight is one of the most important shots in disc golf, whether it's a local course or one of the world championships. Being able to execute a straight shot is very important. So.